All right, welcome everybody to our latest Live Motocross podcast as we talk all things SMX and maybe chat some MXGP with Jason Thomas and Ben Townley. Firstly, thank you to everyone for listening and supporting the site. We really appreciate it. We also like to thank our sponsors for this episode in Fly Racing and Firepower. Starting with Fly Racing, who have just dropped their 2026 range recently, which once again raises the bar for performance and design. Built with championship proven technology, the new collection is all about control, comfort, and confidence on any track in any conditions. Leading the charge with the Formula S, the world's first off-road smart helmet. It's a game changer and a bold statement of Fly Racing's commitment to innovation. Ready to ride? Check out the full 2026 line at flyracing.com, your local dealers. Follow flyracing.global on social media and cheer for all the athletes in the SMX and MXGP World Championships. Also, big shout out to Firepower. We're obviously teamed up with heavy hitters in the industry like Club MX. So be sure to check them out online and on socials to see why they're so highly regarded and all their excellent offerings are so well received by all. Obviously, welcome JT. How's life? And thanks for joining us. The wild schedule's back on, mate. You had a bit of a weekend off, a rare one last weekend. So the excitement's building up to SMX and Charlotte round one playoffs, isn't it?
It is, man. It's it's an interesting topic, these races, because you get a little bit of everything. For me, I'm ready to go. Like, I think it's awesome. My favorite part of it is that the riders make a lot of money, and I would have killed for an opportunity like this. So I'm now in this happy place where I'm not envious anymore of like, man, I missed my window to make all this money. Like, I'm kind of done with that thought process. It's just I've been gone too long, and now I can truly be happy for them without inserting my own jealousy and feel like I missed something. So for these guys, especially the privateer guys, you think about like, okay, Colton Nichols is a former 250 Supercross champion. I know he makes a lot of money, but I'll use him for an example. He made $102,000 in this championship already one time, right? And I know for the average person listening, I'm not Eli Tomac or Jet Lawrence, and neither are most people listening. So 100 grand is a lot of money. Like, you throw around this term life changing, and I don't know that it's life changing, but people can get out of a lot of problems with $100,000. Like, you can make your life a lot easier with $100,000. So that's what I like most about it. It is super exciting. It is super entertaining. But for me, the overall concept of it is so beneficial to so many people in the sport that I would be on board simply for that. Even if I was bored out of my mind, I would fake it just because I think it's so great for so many people.
Yeah, it's really good stuff, mate. Obviously, it's going to be really, ramping up. The riders will be particularly excited. It's a lot of work for the teams and, all their mechanics and all that kind of thing, all the personnel. But, for the fans and the riders and I guess the sport as a whole, it's a really cool format. And I guess they're making improvements every year. So we can really only expect it to keep getting better. You hear various talk about them looking at different venues as well, just finding the right fit. And there's a lot of trial and error going on, mate. But behind the scenes and you see it firsthand that there's a lot of work going on to make these as good as possible because there is a lot of challenges associated with doing it. So I guess they deserve a lot of credit for making it happen and sort of working together, everyone pulling in the one direction to make the best possible event, isn't it?
100%. And I was sitting there. I'll be the first one to say I was sitting there at Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum in October of 2022. And I had just finished my first pro motocross season on television, but I didn't have anything guaranteed for 23 yet. I could have been one and done and never done it again for all I knew. So I was watching this kind of whole thing unfold. And you got to remember, this was when, Daniel Blair was in the role that I currently reside in. So I didn't have any certainty about being a part of any of this. I was purely there as a sponsor representative for Fly Racing at that time. And I was kind of unsure about how this was going to go. Like, you're talking about different point structures, different formats, hybrid tracks. Like, I'm like, wait, what? Like, it just seems like so much change all thrown in at the same time that it felt like it was going to be hard to make that kind of seamless and go the way you want. Typically you can change one small thing and it can have really big ripple effects to the downside. This felt like they changed everything, and somehow magically it's kind of been pulled off without a lot of issue. So to your point, a lot of credit needs to be doled out, and it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You could give me any race, any sport, and I can poke holes in it. and if you wanted to, like, okay, would I love better venues for this? Like, would I love more grand venues? Sure. But we have professional baseball, professional football, college football, we have summer concerts. All the venues are absorbed right now. So they're really up against it for venue availability. So that's not their fault. It's not like it's not like they're missing that and like, oh wow, yeah, someone should have told us. We would immediately change venues. They know that. They're doing the best they can with what's possible to execute right now. But big picture, has this been a success or not? I would argue to the death with anybody that's trying to say it hasn't been, right? It's impossible to say that this hasn't been overall very successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, mate. It's pretty fascinating. And obviously, the track always, gets a lot of interest going into these ones and, how they adjust the bike suspension, the setups and everything. And just the comfort is a real challenge for these guys. Obviously, the weather's going to add a little bit of extra for them this weekend. And the racing's going to be pretty intense, I imagine. I'm sure it's not going to play a huge major difference maker, the weather, but it's also something that needs to be considered, mate. But how's the track shaping up from your perspective being there? Do you think it's going to be like previous editions where there's a lot of sort of post-mortem going on about riders just not being comfortable? Do it's just going to be a bit of a mix of everything and see how it all pans out, mate? But it adds a nice little layer of intrigue and a nice bit of nuance to sort of challenge the riders and get the fans talking, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think they're going to have it figured out for the most part because we're on year 3 of the same basic layout on the same dirt. So if they're still lost, that's on them at this point. Like, you've had plenty of time, two practice days and 2 full race days of the same dirt and the same layout. This layout is almost identical to what we've had in the past. And okay, subtle nuance differences, fine. But as far as your motorcycle settings are concerned, they're identical. And so that part I don't think you'll hear much about. And like, where do I come down on this track and this layout? It's okay. I think the long straightaways with just kind of switchbacks and stuff, like, it does make passing difficult. When I look at the layout, I struggle to find easy passing places. The rhythm sections played a big role last year. Like, Deegan was doing the quad where most of the other 250 guys weren't. That was a big coup. You never know if that's going to play out the same or not. Jet was getting pretty creative or innovative is probably a better word in the sand section, like kind of putting the sand rollers together down by the starting line of the drag strip. So I think it's one of those racetracks where the obvious things won't really show up. Like, it's not going to be like, oh man, he just killed everybody in the whoop section. Well, we're not going to have whoops. So the riders are going to have to find subtle areas to make up time. Like, they're going to have to really think about where they can be faster than other people, because I think the lap times are going to be pretty similar in most cases. So if you get a bad start, for one, you're in big trouble, but you're going to have to be creative in how you move forward. And I already kind of gave away the biggest point, but the starts at this round are going to be absolutely crucial. Like, overload on importance of the start. And, just to kind of add to the start thing, should have kind of began there, but this start is very unique because it's split start and they're facing opposite directions and they're going to come back and converge. Now, I've heard a lot of different opinions about, is that better? Is it worse? What does it change? Really, for me, it's not a whole lot different. If you get a good start, you're going to end up with a good start anyway. The way they come back together and merge is not a huge deal. The one, I think, unique aspect about it is for riders who don't typically qualify all that well, or let's say a guy that's going to go to the LCQ this weekend that didn't make it in points, like a Cody Schock in the 450 class. Okay. He's going to have to go to the LCQ every time. He's plenty good enough with the openings we have, because remember, we're going to take more guys because we have injuries and vacancy in each class. So it's not going to be a brutal ask to get into the main event. His gate pick is going to be at the very back of that. So figure somewhere between 17 and 20 is going to be his gate pick. That doesn't sound awesome. But when you have a split start and there's basically 10 guys on each side, well, now you have like 7th pick on your side. He's a great starter. With 7th pick, you can hole shot from anywhere. That's fun. there's no way you'll ever convince me that with a 7th place gate pick on any start that you can't get the whole shot if you're a good starter. So that helps a person like that. If you have a bad qualifying session, like we've seen Ken Roxon have really poor qualifying sessions. We've seen Cooper Webb have really poor qualifying sessions. It's not going to be as punitive at Charlotte to have a bad qualifying position as it would at a typical, like let's say a triple crown. This is the same format as a triple crown, right? We won't have heat races, qualify from practice, go straight in. It won't be as punitive as that would be. So I don't even think guys are going to be stressing about qualifying, other than maybe a guy like Sexton who really lets it kind of bleed into his psyche a little bit. He allows it to affect his confidence. The other guys are going to be like, yeah, man, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to get a start or I won't. The gate pick's not going to be a real factor. So I just think that needs to get thrown in there, because some of these guys, you think about where McAdoo came through the LCQs in the past every time, and his gate pick was just atrocious in every main event. This won't be that necessarily such a bad setup for a guy like that.
Yeah, definitely could, give a few different riders a really good chance to, put their onus on the event and really condition themselves for a good couple of mains, isn't it, mate? So that's going to be great to see. And obviously we've got to touch on the Prado and Kawasaki. I've just confirmed that they won't be racing SMX. So that's a bit of a sort of looking like it's just drawn to that conclusion of a team split completely there, mate. Obviously the downward spiral's been going for quite a while, and it's like we've said, he's kind of checked out at this point. So yeah, I guess it's sort of borderline, sort of a hopeless situation, and that's kind of this latest piece of news sort of puts the nail in the coffin a bit. And then obviously the no motocross of nations for Spain, that's another blow for him. Spain, the event as a whole. So just a really nasty little end to the season here, mate. But obviously Austrian machinery looms for Prado, and he'll be looking for some rosier times there for sure.
Yeah, and I kind of have a conspiracy theory on this, and I have no way to prove it. I'm very likely wrong. I would say extreme probability of being wrong on this, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, because that's what we're here for, is the bench race. So if you remember, we were kind of talking about where I thought that maybe he would try to get on a KTM or a gas or something for Motocross Nations. Like, I thought he would try to make that switch. And then we got news this week that Spain had gone ahead and chosen their team without him. So clearly there was communication between the Spanish team and Jorge Prado that he wasn't going to be able to race a KTM, because I was very sure that he wasn't going to race a Kawasaki at that race. There was just no way that was going to happen for many reasons. So now my conspiracy brain, putting on my tinfoil hat, I wonder if basically they said, nope, you're not doing that. And he said, okay, well, fine, I'm not racing these playoffs then. Like, do you want to play hardball and not let me go in October, and we both know this is ending, and let me go race the KTM? Then guess what? You guys are going to have nobody at these playoff rounds. Like, I'm not trying to play coy. I'm not trying to, wink at anybody. I don't know. This is like something I just came up with today. Is it could be like a tit for tat scenario where he's like, all right, fine. Like, you guys don't want to like be kind of end this on mutual terms and let me go and do the thing I'm going to do anyway eventually, then I'm not going to help you when you need a rider. Then you'll just go racing with no one. So I don't know. But like, if you just think through it logically, it certainly could have gone that way, because the only reason I throw that out there is because up until the last couple of days, it was all systems go for him to race these playoff rounds. He was testing SMX all summer. Like, he was testing SMX in July. So what changed in the last few days for him to not want to race these playoffs? That is the question. That is why I think this. Something fundamentally changed in his thought process or his motivation or his mood to make him not want to do these rounds. Because let's face it, he's probably given away, I don't know, at least 50 grand. Like, at least. I'm saying, like, bare minimum, there's no way he's not giving away at least $50,000 to go racing for these races. So something changed here to make him say, nope, I'm not doing it. And I don't believe that was Kawasaki saying that, because they're going anyway. Like, they're going to the race. So you don't think that they want to have representation there from a guy they're paying $2.5 million to? Of course they do. So this, to me, this has to be Jorge saying, I'm out. And then that leads me to the question of why did he say that, which then causes me to think there was a falling out based on Motocross Nations. Yeah, follow me through that whole whiteboard out scenario. I'm like a detective trying to piece these things together, but I could certainly see it have gone that way.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to unpack it, and it must be so frustrating for all parties. But Kawasaki, obviously, with Anderson out as well, and not having Prado in the 450 class, it must be quite frustrating for them as well. And obviously, Monster Energy, who are obviously partnered with this event as well, Fox, who sponsor Prado, so many major players must be pretty dissatisfied how this has all worked out. And I guess touch on that too, but also the Kawasaki's impending arrival of Sexton as well. There's going to be some serious spanners in the works thrown out if that doesn't work out as well, mate. But just to touch on Sexton, how do you think he fares heading into this one, mate? It's a bit of a question mark. What version of Sexton do we get? He's got the team switch on the cards. He's got Motocross of Nations. He's actually going to. So there's so much for those guys. There's a little bit of parallels and similarities between those two. So firstly, touch on Prado and Kawasaki's outlook, and then what's on the cards for Sexton.
Yeah, Sexton's going to be an interesting one. And I went out on a whim and we did this little preview video on Racer X yesterday, and I picked him to win. Now, do I have any confidence in that? If I was able to bet on these, which I'm not, if I was able to bet, would I bet on him? No, I would not. But I just thought it was an interesting pick because no one's talking about him. No one's really like hyped up on him. And there are differing opinions on this. Some people I talk to say like he is so far from motivated that you really can't measure it. Like he's so checked out. I don't know that I buy that. The guy's a competitor. Like you don't become Supercross and Motocross champion if you're not like uber competitive as a person. Like that's just not how these guys are built. So if you're going to tell me he's just going to show up and go through the motions and not care, I simply don't. I don't believe that. Like I do not believe that. We've seen already that if he's not into it, he will just stay home. We've already seen it. He's proven it twice this year already that he just won't be there. So if he's going to go, then I think he's going to try. And the whole unlock for me with Chase Sexton is if he gets good starts or not. If he gets good starts, everything's possible. Like he was amazing at this race in 2023, like lights out at this exact same track and race in 2023. So he's certainly capable of doing it. And I just think it's a great opportunity for him to really come in with no pressure. No one's really looking at him. No one's really talking. Everybody's thinking about Kawasaki and the change and all that stuff. And he can come in here and make some noise really with no one expecting much. And again, if you told me that his starts are going to be awful all weekend, then I'll immediately retract my statement. But I think it's going to be one of those situations where if he gets a good start, you think that there's any part of him where he wants to back down to Jet Lawrence right now? Hell no, he doesn't. I think he's so sick of seeing Jet Lawrence stand on the top of the podium that he would do anything to stop it. So this is really his chance. And again, he's going to have to be perfect. He's going to have to nail every aspect of the thing. But I think he's one of the only guys in this class that can beat Jet. I would say, all things considered and all things being equal, he might be the only guy that can straight up beat Jet.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough ask to beat Jet for sure, mate. And any sort of thoughts on him heading in? Obviously, they're putting in the work and they'll be getting dialed the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it's just a monumental effort to beat him straight up at this point, given the form he's in, given the SMX form that he showed over the first two series. So yeah, it's going to be pretty tough to beat, mate. It sort of plays into his skill set. He's so adaptable. He judges things really well. He gauges the line selection really well, like you mentioned earlier. So I guess there's some pretty cool dynamics heading in. Can Tomac get those starts, which will be so imperative for him to be able to run up there and just not have to make all those passes and get stuck like he has so many times outdoors. So Jet's the man, and I guess what do you think makes him the man in this particular format?
Well, I don't think the guy has any weaknesses. Like I really don't. I'll qualify that. The only weakness I've ever seen him have is if he's disengaged, if he's just kind of going through the motions and really doesn't want to be there. There's something else going on in his life that he's more concerned with. He's dealing with some sort of, like we've seen him deal with this like social media thing at the beginning of motocross, like the whole video thing that got released, dealing with his, former agent. Like if there's something else going on that is soaking up his attention, then we've seen him not be his best. Like that has absolutely happened. Like think about A1. He was way off, like way, way, way off. And I remember seeing him in December at our media days, and he looked like he never wanted to race again. I'll be real honest with you. Like he looked so uninterested in what we were doing. And that showed up. That showed up at the first round. Like that was the same guy, the same racer was there too. So if you're telling me that he's locked in and he's just kind of in the zone, which I think he is right now, I don't know how you really attack him. His starts are really good. His form is impeccable. He's super fit. I don't know. Like I wouldn't know where to really start. You know, if I asked this question to James Stewart and Ricky and those guys a lot, because they would have to answer this question. Like this would be a valid question for them to have to answer 20 years ago is like, hey, you're dealing with this guy. Where are you taking it to him? Because they did a lot of that type kind of thinking like, okay, how do I exploit this guy's weaknesses? And Ricky was the king of this. Ricky would analyze, dissect, come up with a game plan, and attack any sort of vulnerability you have. And he figured out Chad. He figured out James Stewart. He figured out Kevin Windham pretty much without fail. But he knew what to do and when to do it. And I think they kind of shrugged their shoulders and they just, like, I think most of them just say you have to be there all the time. Like, you just have to be relentless with him, and you can never, ever give him anything. Like, you have to make him take it every single time. If you give him unearned points, like think about like tennis, like they talk about, if you make unforced errors against Jet, that's the end of it for you. Like it is game over for you if you make unforced errors against this kid. So I don't think he has a weakness. The only thing you can do is basically fight fire with fire and basically try to be perfect as well.
Oh, that's awesome stuff, mate. Great breakdown. It's really cool to obviously you pull on your experience there from seeing all these various rivalries in the past, and obviously that's shifted over the years as well. So it's really great feedback on that, mate. And obviously, welcome BT. He's back in New Zealand, mate. We haven't spoken for a little while with JT since Lockett, I think, after that GP around that time. But great to have you back on, mate. And we've covered a little bit of Prado and Sexton, and you heard Jet Lawrence there with JT. So welcome, mate. It's good to have you back on.
Hey, cheers for having me, boys. Good to be back. I'm currently back in New Zealand now, sitting in the bulldozer, actually, getting a bit of track work done.
No, it's awesome to have you on,
Nice.
mate. It's pretty cool, mate. You're doing double duties, mate. Podcasting a bulldozer. I think there's the first for everything, mate. So good on you. But obviously, we quickly heard the Prado not going to be racing SMX for Kawasaki news this morning, mate. Would love your take on that. It's just been a downward spiral, been a complete disaster. So we'll just get your take on that quickly, mate, because you had some pretty interesting comments in the past about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've sort of not really on social media these days, so that's news to me. I didn't know that until you just told me, so it's not a surprise by any stretch of the imagination, hearing that. I just don't understand his thinking. That's really where I've got to with the whole thing now. What is the next piece of the puzzle look like? And if he is to think that changing plastic colors is the answer to that, I mean, he's foolish. It's just I didn't get to hear what JT said about it, but I'm assuming he would probably have a similar take, right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even like. I'm so lost with where he is in life and decision making and any of this. The only thing I would tell him if I was advising, which I shouldn't be, is when you get on the bike that you choose, you better haul ass, man. Like you better be your best self times 10 the next time you race another colored motorcycle.
Touche. That's what I've been saying to some mates just back here in New Zealand. They've been talking to me about it, and I'm just like, whatever he does next, he needs to light the world on fire, I said to someone, because I was hearing, there's murmurs going around about him trying to get his gas or a KTM or whatever to do Ironman, because he's suggesting that if he went to the same track that he was at, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, whenever he was there, he would just show us a completely different ride. I mean, that's absolutely absurd thinking, to think that that's going to be the case. So yeah, I don't really have anything more to say about it, to be honest, Ed. At the end of the day, it's just such a bizarre scenario, like I haven't spoken to you guys after, and I'm sure you've already, been over this, and I'm sure the sport has been over this multiple times or thousands of times. But the Budds Creek thing is just a mind bender. What happened there? Like absolute, that's about as bizarre thing that's ever happened in the sport that I'm aware of.
Yep. The sport does not remember quitting kindly is all I will say on it. So for me, I will continue to talk about it because I find it fascinating. But as far as Jorge goes, I think the time for talk is over. Like the next time you race, you better kick some ass. Like I don't really want to hear more. I don't want to hear any more comments about it from him personally. I just want to see all the things he said about his current situation and what the new situation will be. I want to see that now. Like action, and is really the only thing that's going to save it for me.
You want to see actions do the talking, not
100%.
talking about actions.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy. So what is next for him? Like, what does that look like? Like, just let's hash that out, because at the end of the day, like, he's very limited with Supercross, right? Like, he did that little bit part-time before he went back to defend the World Championship, did some this year and got injured, showed some okay signs, but I can't imagine there's a line of teams or factory teams just lined up going, yeah, we'll have your services, right? Like, or am I wrong in thinking that?
Well, he's very fortunate that Tom Vial is heading back to Europe because he's going to slide into the ride that Tom Vial is vacating. So it'll be a much lower salary, but he's very fortunate that that's all went the way it did. Otherwise, I don't know that he would have a spot to go to. But with Tom leaving, he does have a spot to go to now. So, time to shut up and put up, honestly.
Yeah, and I because I'm privy to the stuff in the sport, the financial implications for him for what he did to get to Cowie and now to then leave Cowie, it's enormous. Like in his career, when it should be some of the best times of earning for him in his, let's say, sports career, it's like he is just pissing away money, literally. It's crazy.
He's taking at least a $2 million a year pay cut to do what he's doing, at least. And I know, Ben, you've been gone for a while. You know how badly you would love to make $2 million a year at this point. Like when you're making all the money, it's like, yeah, whatever, I'll make more. But then you get away from it and you're like, you know how hard it is to make $2 million in a year? Like,
yeah.
He's going to make his own decisions, but I just hope he's making the right one. That's all.
Yeah, craziness, man.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating stuff. Yeah, and obviously that's without what we discussed there. He's leaving a lot of money on the table, missing SMX as well. So it's just wild what's all happening. And I guess JT will probably move on to, Cooper Webb, obviously fly racing athlete, Supercross champion, multiple Supercross champion. But you mentioned some pretty good stuff on one of your podcasts there that he's only actually got a podium once in the 12 SMX motos he's done. So the format doesn't really suit him. You were saying it doesn't really play to his strengths, which is a great sort of take on it, So, but he's a serious gamer and, he still really likes making money. He's not leaving that kind of dough on the table, mate. But I guess with the shorter series being only 3 rounds, some wild things can happen. That's a bit of a leveler too. No whoop. So how do we think Cooper Webb goes in at first CU, JT, then BT?
Well, I just think you're going to see what you've already seen from him. Decent results, nothing, headline grabbing. Top 5s would be pretty good. I think you'll see some 7ths in there too, maybe an 8th here and there. The format is okay for him, but I don't think the tracks are perfect for him. They're not really tight. He can't really utilize his strengths or skill set, which is sticking to the insides everywhere. It's just not going to really work on this type of track. St. Louis would be better for him. Coming off an injury is not ideal. So if I'm him, and I have talked to him about this, it's like I'm going to get the best start I can. Like starts are a strength of his, and I'm just going to hang in there time after time after time and see where I end up. And I'll probably walk out of here with a couple $100,000 for my troubles, and then we'll move into the off season. He's not coming in my opinion. He didn't come out to say this, but my opinion, he's not coming in here saying, I'm going to go win the SMX World Championship. That's what's about to happen. I think he's too wise to think that, coming off an injury and looking at his results, out of 12 motos that he's raced of these SMX World Championship playoffs, he has 1/3 place out of 12. So for him to think that he's magically going to go out and win coming off of an injury, he's too smart to really think that's the likely scenario. So he'll be fine. He's very realistic. Like he knows himself and knows his kind of his surroundings and his placement and where he is really well. And I think that's served him well over time. So I just think he's entering this with the right mindset.
Yeah, I agree with JT. I don't really think that he's going in there like win at all costs. Like for him, like coming off the back of an injury, although Coop does like a bit of cheddar, I'm sure that he's not gonna, go, for broke to win this. He's just looking to get some racing under his belt and then have another good off season. Although he was a little bit fragile at one point there in off season, but go into next year as a reigning champ, and probably in his mind that's where he wants to have probably another shot, or I don't know if I should say final, but it's certainly a really realistic shot again at winning a championship, and I think that's where his mindset will be. And if the win's there and he's in contention to win this championship, yep, he'll probably have a go at it. But I don't think in his mind he's lining up thinking like this is what I'm not putting all my eggs into this basket. My eggs are going into 2026 is what I think where his mindset will be at.
Yeah, I agree. He where he is right now on like the fully locked in, dead serious Coop versus like the week of A1 could not be any different. Like they're miles apart, which tells you really all you need to know.
That's right. Yeah, that's bang on a really good way to analyze it. And like you said, the off season will be important to him. I presume he's probably got a couple of international races lined up, and then he'll lock in, to, like you said, in terms of his mindset and his, racing mindset will be really all come January again. It won't be all out for this SMX series.
Yeah, some other riders that'll be really excellent up there obviously be Hunter Lawrence. You expect Tomac, obviously starts permitting. Obviously Hunter's pretty dialed on that HRC with his start. Roxon won't be the former 2 years ago, but he should still be in and around there, won't he, mate, given the injuries? Justin Cooper will be a threat. And RJ Hampshire's one that's going to be really interesting to see how he fares. Said he's not as comfy on the SMX stuff yet, but you can never write him off a bit like Webb. He's a fighter. He's got that spirit, belief in himself. So cool to see how he goes. So any of those you want to touch on, JT and BT?
Yeah, I think, all those guys have a chance. Like you just don't know exactly who's going to show up and really perform when it counts, because a guy like Justin Cooper, like, of course, he's going to be fired up. He has a red plate for the first time in his 450 career. But he's also, I think, a little beaten down. Like, he's been racing for so long. It's hard to find intensity after you've been racing for 9 months straight. Like, it's hard to just come in all wound up, like the way Tomac was last year, where he was rested, fully engaged. Like, he was all in on this race. I think it's hard to mount that much just engagement, like having every system firing mentally and physically this late in the season. So I think all those guys, whether it's Tomac or Cooper, I think to think they're going to have some sort of outsized effort versus what we've already seen is tough for me to really wrap my head around. I think if Tomac gets good starts, he'll be in the fight. If he doesn't get good starts, you'll see a lot of what you saw at Budds Creek, where he's just kind of going through the motions. Kenny, to me, is a little bit of a wild card. Kenny, if you give Kenny a good start, you can really kind of change the direction of his race. And if he starts 10th, maybe he gets back to 5th or 6th. But if you give him a whole shot, that really energizes him. And he's probably the most rested of all these guys. Like, he's going to come in excited to be here, where I think everybody else, it kind of feels like another weekend, and they may be thinking about the off season a tiny bit if things aren't going so well. I think Kenny's actually looking forward to being back at the races.
Yeah, so I agree with in terms of like the timeline, for the length of season and whatnot for energy wise, and like you said, just attention to what they're doing. But I just have like this gut feeling that the where Justin Cooper is at and the style of tracks that we're going to, based on the fact that firstly we've got no whoops, and he's a very good starter. Length of motos are slightly shorter. Correct? Am I correct in saying that? They're slightly shorter than than Supercross. I just feel like if there's ever a time that he's gonna be a contender, he already has a points lead, and I know that's slender, but I just feel like this could be an opportunity for him to break out. We've been talking about him, winning a Supercross, and he hasn't quite got to that spot. And I feel like this is just, it is in between Supercross, Motocross in terms of the style of the track and also the racing, in terms of two motos and whatnot. And that's just the gut feeling I have. Hunter's going to be good, I believe. I think both himself and Jet, they're not totally worn out. They've come back to just a motocross season. And like you said, with Eli, starts are going to be, pivotal for him. And it seems to sort of just be up and down with him with starts. I seen at one point there, at one point around, was it Ironman? Like he had just an enormous amount of average of starting up front. It was super high, and then sort of went off the boil again. So hard to really know. And then what about Sexton? I didn't hear his name come out. JT, where are we at with him?
Yeah, we were talking about a little bit before you jumped on. I think
sorry.
No, you're good. For me, if you tell me that Sexton gets good starts, I honestly think he can win. I really believe that he can win, but I do think he's going to be really start dependent, because if you tell me he gets bad starts, I think his attitude and his give a damn, for lack of a better phrase, will go downhill quickly, because he's going to just be like, well, piss on it. I'm going to be on a green bike soon anyway. I don't really care. But if you get him up front in the fight, I think you'll spark that competitiveness. And I think he really, really wants to beat Jet and Hunter. So if he can get with them early, I think you'll see a very inspired Chase Sexton, simply because the competitor side of him will come out, because I think he's just sick of watching those guys beat everybody. I think he is so thoroughly annoyed and frustrated with those guys winning everything that there could be a great effort out of him, but he needs to put himself in a good position early, I think, to get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just have to believe that he can't be content or happy with how this season's gone. And to me, it goes one way or the other. He comes out firing, and he's just he's opposite the Coop. He wants to go out and win and win at all costs. Or like you said, hey, I'm at the end of my run here. I've got 3 more races or 4, including Motocross of Nations, and then I'm on to the next chapter. So, but I tend to think in his demeanor that he's going to come out firing is what I'm feeling, about him. Just based on having a pretty poor, well, I shouldn't say poor, because he fought all the way to the end for that championship, but it's just been a bit tumultuous of sort of a season, I guess, in a sense, really.
Yeah, I'm kind of manifesting a really good Chase Sexton for this weekend, because I think he's maybe the only guy that, if everybody's riding well, that he can go head to head with Jet. And I just want to see a fight between those, not a fist fight, but I want to see those two go at it. And I don't think there are that many people that, if Jet's engaged and connected, that can really challenge him. And I think Sexton is talented enough to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can't add any more to that for sure.
Yeah, and as we move on to the 250 class, obviously that's going to be pretty excellent as well. Obviously, Deegan's coming in as the man to beat. I guess you can expect some pretty interesting antics on and off the track as well. JT's always trying to put a flex on his competitors in some way, mate. Likes to sort of crush the adversaries and sort of make a statement as well while doing it. So he's obviously proven he's a lead at SMX. He'll have his hands full with Joe Shimoda though, won't he? Obviously there was a bit of tension between them last round, but Shimoda's excellent in SMX. He's proven as well, and he's going to come out swinging. So he's had a really great season, all things considered. Shimoda, the riding's been excellent. He's had that speed, the fitness is absolutely phenomenal. So, and just the way he's managing races is coming on leaps and bounds too. So the Deegan Shimoda showdown's kind of where we're at 250s, is it, JT?
Yeah, I love it. And I'm going to ask them tomorrow at the press conference, basically like, hey, what changed here? Because they really hadn't taken any verbal shots at each other. Like, they had been really respectful. Deegan really didn't say much. Like, anytime we were under the tent before they'd go up on the podium, like, Deegan would congratulate Joe. He would talk respectfully about Joe. Off the camera, he was saying, like, man, he's like really fit. Like, he was never kind of attacking Joe the way he would other guys. And then that changed. Something changed at Budds Creek with them. I don't know if something, who knows? Deegan could take anything. He could take something that didn't even happen, a perceived slight, and use that. But the attitude, the comments, the roosting of him, I mean, cussing at him, like, there was a lot that went on that seemed like a pivotal shift in tone between those two. And I kind of want to find out tomorrow, like, hey, what's up here? Like, what did we all miss that changed here? Because it really felt like it wasn't this way. And then all of a sudden at Budds Creek, it felt like it really was. And I'm here for it. Like, I want those two to go at it, because of all the racers we have, Joe's the only one that will take the fight to Hayden. Like, he will get aggressive with him. He will instigate contact. He does not fear Hayden at all. Like, I think he knows Hayden's great, but he does not fear him. Where for some reason these other guys, they just kind of roll over when Hayden gets really aggressive with them, and Joe doesn't seem to want to do that at all. So I would love if they were just going at it for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think they will. I personally, think that where Joe's at confidence-wise, and where he's been able to, assert himself as the most dominant guy outside of Hayden, I think, in his mind, he's going to go into this championship. And he's been close to winning this championship in the past, right? If my memory is correct.
He's been on the podium pretty much every time.
So, in his mind, going into this event, where he's at after the season, like you said, he's really, apart from, the small injury at the beginning, and I think there was one or two sort of low, maybe scoring motocross events, it's been a pretty solid season for Joe. And I think just going into this series now, he knows he's had those results in the past, coming off the back of where he's at right now. His bike certainly, it looks, from what I can see, watching on TV, like he's got a super competitive bike, because we all know, if you're on a Yamaha, you've got a pretty, that you're on the number one motorcycle in that category. So, you've got to have a competitive motorcycle. And I think that just with everything that JT said, he's not scared to back down from the fight. I love it. I love that he's keen to just get in there and get aggressive and race for it. So yeah, I expect that it'll be a good championship. I do give the nod to Hayden, just because I do believe that this style of track, based on what we've seen since he's been pro, and certainly in this particular series, the SMX series, I think that they favor him slightly in terms of the style of racetrack. Would you agree with that, JT?
Yeah, I do. I think you're spot on. And the only thing I would add to what you're saying is that just from talking to Darren Lawrence a lot about the Honda, they really feel that the biggest challenge for Joe getting good starts is if the start is super deep. Against the Yamahas. They feel the Yamahas have a big edge in torque. And if the start is really deep, Joe has to be perfect. If it's harder, like a hard pack start, like we'll see in Supercross, or we'll see this weekend or the next 2 rounds, it's kind of a lot more even. Joe, he needs to execute, but he's not at a disadvantage the way he is at the other round. So maybe you'll see Joe kind of nail the starts in the way he has been, with, not only the physical side of it, but mentally, if you believe that, like if going in, like, hey, this setup is good for me, the dirt's not going to be working against me. A lot of times, whatever you believe is typically what happens. So it wouldn't shock me to see Joe at the front on the starts.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. So I'm, like you said, I'm also here for it, because I want to see a race, for the championship, or both of these championships, to be honest. But I think that those two are, clearly the favorites in terms of having a head-to-head race, really. I mean, I'm not sure where Levi Kitchen's at. It's really sort of hard to say, or even Cole,
I don't think
like
he
he's
knows.
probably right. Okay, there you go. Even Cole, like I don't think we're going to see what we saw in Supercross out of him. I think we'll see better than what we did in Motocross. But who else is in the picture for that? It's hard to see anyone else really fighting for that championship.
Yeah, the only guy that I know is really motivated. I've talked to people around him, talked to him a little bit about it. Is Hammaker. He's still brooding a little bit about how the Supercross championship went and the crash with RJ, and he's not angry. It's more of just he's looking at this as his chance for redemption. So I think he's coming in where a lot of guys are just kind of, ho hum, yeah, let's go make some money. I think Hammaker's a little bit more motivated than that on an emotional level. So we'll see if that kind of shows up in the results or not.
I think that's awesome to hear that, there is that motivation and then that's that fire, off the back of where that championship ended. What's going to be hard for him is he hasn't been in the fight now for so many months, and just to insert yourself into that equation and it's a very short championship, as we know, and to be able to be in that fight for that championship, it's going to take a lot of emphasis, from his side to be right there right away. So that'll be interesting to see if he can. I mean, I hope for him he can, but it'll certainly be it's going to be a tough battle for him to get back in that equation in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. And then he's been dealing with this health issue where I don't know if it's like an autoimmune thing, but he's got something going on where it's been really hard for him to stay strong late in the moto when it's really hot, and it's going to be hot on Saturday. So if he starts to fall off the last few laps of either moto, I'll be thinking about that very thing.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, there's lots to sort of look forward to this weekend, no doubt. Obviously, there's a bit of stuff with the LCQs. They'll throw a bit of drama, won't they, JT? So there's a lot for the fans to enjoy. They'll be doing a lot of sort of pre-event things. You've got some media stuff going on beforehand, mate. So just give us a little bit of a preview of that. Looking ahead, and then BT, you can respond just on how good it is for us to have all this content to enjoy on the weekends.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting weekend. These SMX playoff rounds are more eventful than normal. Like we'll have the press conference tomorrow, and then the riders actually practice in front of the fans, which is not a normal thing, right? Some of them would ride Friday, but this is like official practices with fans in attendance. And then we have the podcast tomorrow evening with James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, myself, Gypsy Jace, Steve Mathis. So that's a good time, and the fans all get to go to that. They get to ask Ricky and James and these guys questions, which is, I think it's a really cool experience. Like you just don't get to do that in other sports. Like you don't get to go talk to some of the best racers of all time in a public forum and pick their brain on what they think about certain things. So I really think that's a cool experience. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it, but I just think for the average fan who that's not something they get to do or any other sport gets to do. So yeah, I think that for James and Ricky to be willing to do it is awesome. And then for Feld and MX Sports to set it all up is a pretty cool experience. Like I would have killed if I was a little kid and I was 15 years old and you told me I could go to something like that and ask questions to Rick Johnson and Bradshaw and JMB and of course that would be amazing. Like I would have done anything to be able to do that. So really cool deal. And then yeah, man, it's race weekend, and that's not even to speak of the all the drama going on in Turkey this weekend. I was talking to Paul Malin this morning, and they're all locked and loaded a long way from where I'm sitting, a long way from where we're all sitting in Turkey at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to speak on that SMX stuff, I went to that. I think it was the very first round. It was at Chicago 3 years ago. I was there with Levi, and they're just what an awesome event and experience, very start of SMX. So I'm sure it's only going to improve and be better. And just to hear, everything that's going on outside the racing that JT was talking to, that's really cool for the fans, to have that ability to be engaged with. And just, there's just so much out there in this day and age, like my kids turn on YouTube and there's just so much content about the sport. You just don't miss a single thing. And it's I've spoken to you guys about this, numerous times now. It's a very cool time to be a fan in the sport right now, and just the access you have to everything, whether it be, through all of everyone within the industry or the riders themselves. There's just so much out there. So very cool. And Turkey, I'm sort of disengaged a little bit. I've got home and I'm not really engaged in it. But I tell you what, that could go either way in that MX2 championship. In terms of, it could have been an even slimmer margin for Langenfelder off the back of Arnhem. Kai gave up. I know, they both had their issues. Well, Kai didn't on Sunday. Kai had some on Saturday, but it could have even been 5 points slimmer for Kai going into this. So be interesting to see what happens, because last time, Kai had a really strong, let's say, sand round. Really couldn't back it up much more in Sweden in between those two sand events to cut that margin, or even before that in Lockett. So going to be really interesting. It's we talked about this at length, a few weeks ago, and it's coming down, to the end now. It's time for both of them to stand up, and I just sort of get the feeling neither one, apart from what I saw at Lockett from Langenfelder, neither one has really grabbed onto it completely. Would that be fair to say, JT?
Yeah, I think that we've just been this yo-yo effect back and forth, and we are on a much more similar setup to kind of Lockett now. So if you're Simon, you're like, okay, we're getting back to conditions that are going to favor me. So it's going to swing back my direction. And you're Kai, you're just kind of like, I'm going to grab all this momentum with everything I have and try to lean into it and put maximum pressure onto the situation. I did find it funny, though, that this week Simon was riding in Italy all week under the watchful eye of family DeCarli. And it just felt like, okay, well, if we're not going to win this thing, it won't be because we didn't do everything possible. So you're going to get your ass to Italy. And we're going riding every single day. And we're going to make sure every single, every I's dotted and every T's crossed before we go to Turkey. What changed anything? Probably not. You could just tell, like, the sense of urgency has set in over there.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't aware of that, but it certainly makes sense in terms of the way DeCarli, how they approach their racing. So I just, I feel like those, we're all out of sand races now, and it's time, if Kai really wants to, put himself back in this championship fight, it's got to be done this weekend, barring any mistakes, obviously, for the remaining of the season from Simon. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It certainly is.
No, it's looking good, mate. Obviously, JT as well. Any final thoughts on you as well, BT? Be good to get BT on one of those panels too, JT, at the SMX rounds, and make some good convos as well, mate. But any final thoughts, firstly, JT, and then you, BT?
Yeah, it would be cool. It would be cool. I mean, BT's always invited if I have a say in it. No, I'm looking forward to this weekend. I think everybody's we have all these racing going on around the world, and then we have this Motocross of Nations kind of looming there too. So it's funny to think about, like, we have this SMX World Championship that everybody's going to be engaged in, and then there's 3 MXGP rounds left. So there's 3 rounds left on both sides, and then we're all going to have this collision course towards Indiana in a few weeks. So I'm kind of like trying to not think about Motocross of Nations, but I also am at the same time, just because I love that race so much. So it's a great time for the sport right now. I wouldn't want to be the MXGP guys flying to Turkey, then China, then Australia. I got a hard pass on that. But it's going to be a wild, I guess we got a full month to go until kind of 2025 is a wrap.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to waking up and watching SMX on Sunday. I know that for me personally, just I guess the broadcast and the way that we can view American motocross, I'm just so excited. I know, the rest of the world is always ready to watch racing in America. So excited to watch that. It's obviously unique, in the format as well. So it just adds some excitement to it. And I think precisely the reason they probably did it, it just resets the series, right? And everyone's got a shot at it again. And I think I think for me, that's I guess the most mouth-watering part about it, we can watch them go at a new championship and 3 weekends in a row. So there's always a lot of excitement for me with it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that myself. I'm actually going to Darwin. I'm taking a group of
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, taking a group over there of guys that want to go and visit an MXGP, and it's been 2001 was the last time there was a GP in this part of the world. So what's that? 24 years since we had a GP down here. So it was massively attended by Kiwis back then, and we're taking a group of 45 guys over to watch it, and it'd be really cool to host them and just show them, behind the scenes a little bit, and get to, see, what it is that I did. A lot of them are supporters of myself. There's quite a few of them have got kids that race with my boys as well. So it's going to be, I'm sure there'll be a lot of beverages consumed and a lot of shit talked and a little bit of racing watched.
That's what it's all about.
Oh, that's awesome stuff. Now, it's been another ripper chat, lads. Really appreciate both of you taking the time to join. It's good to have you both back on because it's been a little while. So, obviously, massive shout out to the fans for listening and supporting these. It's greatly appreciated. A huge thanks to Fly Racing and Firepower for all their support to make these happen, because without them, none of this would be possible. All right, thanks again, lads. Been another awesome podcast. We look forward to catching up next week, and enjoy the SMX and all you do this weekend.
All right,
Cheers,
boys. See ya.
Have a good one.